Hello everybody and welcome to my channel. We're doing a review video today focusing on the Colourpop Mar palette. This released, I think, a few weeks ago. I think it's been like a month since it released, but I got it like a little bit later than everybody else, and I have been trying it out and I've been testing it, and I figured I might as well do a review on it. I've already done a few videos with this palette. I actually do post videos pretty often. I post videos Sundays, Tuesdays, and Fridays, as well as bonus videos throughout the week, so I do post quite often, so I was able to get up some videos featuring this palette, and I will link them in the cards, and I'll also link any more that I have down below. So I have had a chance to really get to know this palette and really just play with it. This look was created using exclusively this palette right here, and I'll just be going through every single shade in this palette. I'll be going through the packaging, I'll be going through pros and cons, I'll be giving you an idea of who I think this palette is best suited for, and then finally I'll be giving you my personal final verdict. Please know that I think that everyone has their own opinions when it comes to makeup, but on my channel I tend to be as thorough as possible. If I see a flaw, if I see like a con, I name it. If I see a pro, I name it also. So yes, this is going to be a pretty detailed review, so if you want to see what I have to say about this palette right here, then keep on watching. First impressions of this palette, this is what the packaging looks like. They do have another palette which is called Sol. I believe that in Spanish Sol means sun and then Mar means sea, so this appears to be a palette inspired by the sea. And then on the back you have the colors of the palette. I don't really pay attention to the back because I actually personally prefer having my colors sort of like under the shades in the actual palette. That's just how I prefer it, because then it's just easier for me, because like this kind of confuses me sometimes, but that's just my personal preference. It's not really a con for me anyway. Initially I was kind of concerned about the fact that this was kind of like a plasticky kind of packaging. Colourpop, to my knowledge, has stuck with like a cardboard packaging for their palettes, but with this palette they switched it up and they made it a little bit more sturdy, and I was kind of like, I'm not sure about that, because if you drop this on a hard surface, I do think that the shades will break. I haven't tried that, I don't want to, but you get my picture. I do want to mention that I have been using this as my mirror when I'm doing my makeup, because sometimes I like to have a mirror over there, like sort of further away from me, and sometimes I do like to have a mirror closer, and this is a good mirror, and I do think that it's a quality mirror, so I just want to mention that. Let me remove this plastic thing though, because it's been on this mirror for quite a while and I haven't had a chance to remove it. So yeah, it's a pretty good mirror. I just wanted to mention that. And then when you look at the actual shades, I've swatched all the colors on my arm right here, and I'm going to put in some inserts, but I'm just going to go through each and every color in the palette so you get an idea of the finishes, of the colors, and I'm also going to go through my experience with each and every color. Before we start, I just want to say that for this look that I'm wearing right now, I used this color in my crease. Then I ended up using this color on most of my eyelid. I used this color on my lower lash line, and then I blended it out using a little bit of this color. I think that created like an interesting like smoky effect, which I really liked. It ended up looking brown, but it's kind of like a little bit more interesting. I kind of was playing around with all these colors. I also used this color to blend out my crease a little bit, which helped a lot. And I used these two colors mixed together for my inner corner highlight, and I really liked how that looked. First up, we have El Rey. This is a beautiful, like very neutral sort of color. I believe it's supposed to be for an inner corner highlight, and it has like a little bit of a gold shift to it. I used it once in my inner corner, and I wasn't really blown away by it. I kind of prefer a little bit more of a metallic color for my inner corner. I definitely don't prefer something with like a very subtle shimmer, which is what I think this color is. If you like a subtle shimmer, you will like this color, but personally I'm not really blown away by it. But I don't think it's a terrible shade. It's just on my skin tone, especially in the insert, it doesn't really show up that well. Moving on, I have Wild One. This is more of like a metallic color. It is not the most metallic shade in the palette. It's kind of like between a shimmer and a metallic. It is a really beautiful color. It is a neutral brown. It does have like this burnt caramel look to it. It is really quite beautiful. I really like it a lot. I used this color on my eyelid, and yes, it performs really nicely. I do prefer using it wet because I do like that extra punch of metallic to it, but it is a nice color. However, since it is a neutral, it doesn't really excite me too much. But this next shade is called Detour, and oh my goodness, I have used this shade more than any other shade in this palette. I absolutely love it. I do think that's one of the best matte blues that I own, if not the best. It is an absolute beautiful matte blue, and I love using this in my crease. I love using this on my eyelid, and I actually have been using this specific shade in conjunction with other palettes in my collection as well, just because it is such a beautiful shade. My experience with this shade has been that it performs better when you apply it with a slightly stiff or more densely packed brush, and when you pat it onto like a sticky primer. I have noticed that several, if not most of my eyeshadows perform better when I just have a base of foundation or concealer and I don't set the product and I just put the eyeshadow directly on top of the foundation or concealer that I'm using to prime my lids, if that makes any sense. This color, when you put it directly on top of an eyeshadow base without setting it, looks beautiful. It's such like a very rich kind of blue. However, something that I did notice is that when you go to blend this shade out, sometimes it turns to a little bit of a greenish kind of color. It looks almost aquamarine. It still looks blue. I mean, if you look at my eyelid, it still looks blue, but it kind of looks a little bit greeny, kind of like a little bit green. And I did a tutorial with this palette using this specific shade, and I noticed when I was done with the look and when I was editing that it looked kind of green. And so that's just something I want to say with this shade right here. If you blend it out a little bit, it looks kind of greenish, but if you keep packing it on and you sort of like blend it out relatively minimally, or you just go with a little bit at a time and just, you know, build it up, it does look more blue. But if you blend it out too much, it kind of looks a little bit green. It's really weird, but it's just something I've noticed. It looks blue, but it has like this slight green hue to it if you blend it out too much, if that makes any sense. Still love this shade. I think it's an amazing color. It looks so beautiful on the eyes, but I just wanted to let you know about that. Then moving on, I have this color called Boozy. Now, this is a color that I do need to use wet because it is a beautifully pigmented color and it looks beautiful on the eyes. However, it does crumble. I would say that it looks beautiful on the eyes if you just moisten the brush a little bit and maybe put on your foundation after you're done with your eyeshadow, because it can look beautiful on the eyes. But I do want to warn you that when I was swatching it and when I was using it on my eyes, it does crumble a little bit and you do get some fallout. However, this shade is just such a beautiful, warm kind of gold color. It's bordering on the edge of a little bit more of an orangey gold. It is quite beautiful, especially all over the eyelid. And I think I did use it as an inner corner highlight at some point and it was beautiful as well. Then next I have Gridlock, and this is a beautiful sort of like a turquoisey, like emerald kind of like mutation. It is absolutely beautiful. I love this color so much. However, I do feel like this color was pressed a little bit harder, because if you look at the previous shade that I was talking about, which was Boozy, I mentioned how that shade has a little bit of a crumbly texture to it, and that usually happens, to my knowledge, when a shadow hasn't been pressed enough. With this color, with this like beautiful Gridlock color, it kind of looks like it was pressed down a little bit too much, because I do have to sort of dig the brush into it just a little bit to get the full impact of this beautiful shade, because I love this shade and I love using it, but whenever I do have to use it, I have to like sort of press down a little bit harder and or use a wet brush to apply it. But when I do apply it, it looks beautiful on the eyes. Next, I have Sorbet, and this is another matte color, and this is a color that surprised me because I wasn't expecting it to perform so well, and I wasn't like expecting to use it that often, but I have used it in almost every single look that I have done with this palette because it's just such a beautiful crease color. If you're using, for example, this color and you're packing it in your crease, this is a beautiful shade to use to just buff it out and blend everything out and just make everything look a little bit more seamless. And even when I was testing out some of these more neutral colors, this was such a beautiful combination shade. It's pigmented and it's just blendable and it just works so well, and I absolutely love it. It reminds me of Makeup Geek's Frappe. It's a really beautiful shade. It's kind of like this dusky, rosy transition color that I absolutely love. Then this other color is called HWY. This is like a mint sort of green color with a little bit of shimmer to it. Like I said, today I use it in my inner corner and on my lid, and it really is like this beautiful sea foam color. It definitely looks better on the eyes than it does in swatches, and I really like it a lot. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I did, but I have used it several times, and I do think it's a pretty color, especially when I mix it in with this shade right here. When I mix these two shades together, it creates like this beautiful duochrome because this has a little bit of a gold shift to it, and this one has like a little bit of a blue undertone, so when you mix these together, it's just such a beautiful color. Then I have this beautiful shade which is called Top Down. This is a dark brown. Something that I have noticed with Colourpop is that they do dark browns really well. When they do a dark matte brown, it's just very pigmented, it's very beautiful. It goes on the eyes really nicely, it blends out like a dream. It's just a really good quality matte, and I really was happy with how this matte turned out. I haven't used it a ton because I don't use neutrals that much, but whenever I have used it, I've been very happy with it and I've had no problems. Then I have My Way, and oh my god, this is such a beautifully formulated shadow. I don't usually use shimmery browns that much, but this is such a beautiful shade to use on the eyes. I do think that when it comes to the best metallic formula, this one takes the cake. It's kind of weird because I feel like each metallic formula in this palette is slightly different, or it's been pressed differently or something, because I do find that there is a difference in how the different metallics in this palette perform. And this shade, I believe, is the best metallic in this entire palette, just formula wise, because it's very buttery, it's very soft, it swatches really well, it goes on the eyes really well. It's a beautiful buttery, really reflective shadow, but it doesn't have a lot of fallout, which is also really great. It goes on really nicely dry, and of course when it's wet it goes on even better. I do think that this is a really beautiful shade, and I kind of wish that these two colors would be more like this color, because then it would have been that much more amazing. This palette is great, I think, if you like the cooler toned trend sort of coming out of hiding, but you still want to wear your warm tones, you still want to wear your neutrals. I would recommend this palette if you want to try out some more colorful looks, but you're still kind of like in your neutral comfort zone. If you love like just colorful eyeshadows and you just want to get like a colorful palette, this palette will not be for you, because like I said, the majority of these shades are neutrals. But if you don't mind that and you still want this palette, then I'd say get it. It's a really good buy in my opinion. I have been using this palette a ton, and I just want to say really quickly that these pans are magnetic. You can pretty much like slide your fingernail in and just remove the pan from the palette completely, and you can just, you know, remove it and rearrange however you want. I have not done that clearly, but I just wanted to mention that little quirk in there. So yes, do I like this palette? I definitely like it. I would really recommend it if you're looking for some more colorful shades, but you still like to stay in your neutral sort of comfort zone. There are some beautiful shades in this palette. Do I think that this palette is overall a good purchase? Yes, I do. I think it's a good one, and I will be using it a lot more in the future, because I really am obsessed with that blue shade in particular. I think it's a beautiful color. So that is pretty much it. I have been running my mouth for a long time doing this video, so I hope you guys enjoyed this, and yeah, I guess I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye guys.